There's a Japanese system that transforms ordinary people into disciplined machines. And the best part is, this system is so simple to apply that it seems like it won't work, until it actually does. Are you someone who seeks more discipline in your life? Perhaps you want to study for an exam. Maybe you want to start a new business. Or maybe you want to participate in a competition and test yourself physically. Regardless of your reason, discipline is the link that connects you to your goal. And undisciplined people spend their whole lives dreaming but accomplish nothing. You probably know someone who starts a new job and quits in less than 3 months, who can't maintain a relationship for very long, or who starts any project and gives up within the first few weeks. It seems like there's something broken inside that prevents this person from keeping anything going. In Japan, there is a system that has the power to change this type of person, transforming them from someone undisciplined and disorganized into someone disciplined and consistent. This system doesn't involve drastic changes. It talks about small movements that make a big difference over time. These microscopic movements, when maintained without stopping, create something that no explosive motivation can create. This system unites 2 concepts, Shitsuke and Gaman. 2 concepts that, when combined, transform chronic inconsistency into unbreakable constancy. Shitsuke is the art of creating systems so simple that it's impossible to fail. Gaman is the inner strength to keep going when everything hurts. Alone they are powerful. Together they rebuild people. But there's a price. You'll have to start so small that you might feel ashamed. So small that people might laugh. And you'll have to keep going when every cell in your body screams to give up. Before we get to the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment on what area of your life you need consistency in right now. And if you enjoy the channel's content, I also invite you to become a member to support us in continuing to produce content. Thank you all so much. Back to the video. Chapter 1, Rock Bottom. The story I'm about to tell you begins in a tiny apartment in Detroit. A guy named William, 30 years old, sitting on the floor with a letter of resignation in his hands. His 4th resignation in 2 years. William wasn't stupid. He wasn't lazy in the traditional sense. But he had a devastating problem. He simply couldn't stick with anything. Anything that required consistency for more than a few weeks, he would break. He would start a new job enthusiastically. In the first week, he was the model employee. The second week, he would start being late. By the 3rd week, he was already absent. By the 4th week, he was fired or he would quit himself. The pattern repeated itself endlessly. He had tried to train for a marathon 3 times. First attempt ran for 2 days, gave up. Second attempt lasted a week. Third attempt didn't even really start, just bought new shoes and left them in the box. His girlfriend had broken up with him 6 months ago. The reason? You never finish anything, William. You can't even handle a difficult conversation until the end. That night, sitting on the floor of that miserable apartment, William looked at his own life and saw a terrifying pattern. 30 years, 0 accomplishments, nothing finished, nothing built, nothing that lasted more than a few weeks. He had 847s in his account. Rent was overdue, and a brutal truth slammed in his face. He was the problem. William spent that entire night awake researching one thing: how disciplined people think. He didn't want more motivation. He'd already tried motivation 1,000 times. He wanted to understand how the brain of someone who actually finished things worked. That's when he stumbled upon an article about Japanese factories, about a system called 5S, and about the last pillar, Shitsuke, the discipline that perpetuates itself. The article described how workers in Toyota factories had followed the same processes for decades without fail. William read it and thought, impossible. Nobody does the same thing for decades without getting tired. But he kept reading, and he discovered something that changed everything. These workers weren't superhuman. They had created environments where doing the right thing was easier than doing the wrong thing. They didn't use willpower. They used design. William realized something brutal about himself. He woke up every day waging a giant internal war. Should I get up or stay in for another 10 minutes? Should I go to work or call in sick? Should I train or leave it for tomorrow? Every decision consumed energy, and he always lost because he was using willpower to fight against an environment designed to make him fail. It might seem crazy to think that someone wakes up in the morning already negotiating so much, but rest assured it happens more often than you imagine. But what caught my attention the most was another concept that emerged alongside it: Gaman, the Japanese ability to endure discomfort without complaining. To keep going when everything hurts, William read about a very interesting concept. In Japan, children are taught that discomfort is not an emergency, that you can feel pain and keep going. That bad feelings don't control you. He realized he had spent 30 years doing the opposite. Every little discomfort was an excuse to stop. Is it cold? Don't train. Are you tired? Skip work. Is the conversation uncomfortable? Run away. That night, with $847 in his account and no prospects, William made a decision. He was going to use this system to rebuild his life from scratch. But this time, differently. William always dreamed of having his own business, but not simply because he wanted to be rich, but because he couldn't handle bosses. He always thought he knew how to do better. He was always in conflict. He had an entrepreneurial soul trapped in an undisciplined body. Every time I thought about starting a company, my mind created a giant movie. Office, employees, high investment, complex business plan, and every time I froze. Too big, too scary, too impossible. But now, reading about Shitsuke, he understood his mistake. He was trying to start big. And big beginnings require large amounts of discipline that he simply didn't have. William decided to start so small it was almost embarrassing. He wanted to create a consulting business, but instead of trying to get big clients, he decided to do something ridiculously simple. Send 5 emails to potential clients every day, not 10, not 20, 5. So small that there was no excuse not to do it, and to ensure that he would do it, he applied Shitsuke for the first time. He created an environment that forced the behavior. I would wake up at 6 a.m. The first thing I did was open the laptop I left on the kitchen table with my contacts folder already open. Coffee beside me. Nothing else on the table. No distractions, no options. Sit down, open the laptop, look at the contact list, send 5 emails. The system was so simple it seemed idiotic, but that was precisely the point. On the first day, William sent all 5 emails. It took him 20 minutes. When he finished, he didn't feel motivated, but he had a sense of accomplishment. He had said he would do it, and he had done it. On the second day, he woke up and his mind started thinking, "You did it yesterday. You can skip it today. 5 emails aren't going to change anything anyway." Here was the test. The first mental negotiation. William remembered Gaman. Discomfort is not an emergency. He didn't want to send the emails, but not wanting to wasn't a sufficient reason to stop. He sat down. He opened his laptop. He sent the 5 emails. His mind was resisting every word he typed, but he did it. Third day, same thing. Fourth day, same thing. On the 5th day, he woke up and something happened, and the behavior was automatic. He sat in front of the laptop and sent the emails. First week, 25 emails sent. 0 replies. Second week, 25 more emails. 1 reply, "I'm not interested." Third week, 25 more emails. 2 replies, both negative. William began to doubt. This isn't working. I'm wasting my time. The voice of resignation, that old familiar voice, began to scream, but something fundamental had changed in those 3 weeks. Even without positive results, William was doing what he had set out to do. The feeling of a job well done served as fuel. 4th week, day 23. The first positive response arrived. A small local business needed basic consulting. Payment $300. William celebrated wildly. Not because of the money, but because he had proven something to himself. Consistency works. You don't see results on day 1, 2, or 10. But if you don't stop, eventually something happens. He did the job. The client was satisfied. He asked for a referral. The client referred his services to someone else. William sent 5 emails every day and attended to the clients who showed up. In the 6th week, he had 2 active clients. 8th week, 4 clients. 10th week, 7 clients, and he had to stop sending emails because he no longer had time. Within 3 months, William was earning more than he had earned in any job. Not because he had created something revolutionary, but because he had done one simple thing consistently. But then the first real obstacle appeared. Because obstacles will always exist. Chapter 2, The First Obstacle. In month 4, one of the main clients cancelled the contract, without warning, without explanation. William lost 40% of his revenue overnight. The old mind immediately shouted, "See, it doesn't work. You should have stayed in your job. This entrepreneurship thing isn't for you." But William had built something in those last few weeks that he had never had before. It wasn't blind trust, but real evidence. He had kept the emails for 3 months, and it worked. The data didn't lie. Instead of panicking, he went back to the system. He increased his emails from 5 to 10 per day, because I knew that consistency was the only answer I had. 2 weeks later, 3 new clients. A month later, higher revenue than before. The obstacle that seemed insurmountable was just a test. And William learned something crucial. Obstacles never end. They constantly appear, clients cancel, projects can go wrong. The numbers don't add up. But perseverance conquers all. If you don't stop, you'll get through it. Understand this. There will always be obstacles, there will always be problems. The difference is that the problems change according to the phase you are in, but they will never cease to exist. So learn to deal with them, maintaining consistency in your actions. Remember that everything is temporary, both good and bad things. With his business stabilized, William decided to attack the second demon in his life, his body. 30 years old, I smoked, I drank, completely sedentary. Every time I tried to change, I made the same mistake. I decided to start an insane routine. 1 hour workout, super restrictive diet, to quit smoking once and for all. It lasted 3 days, 4 at most. Then it would break down and I'd give up on everything. But now he had learned, start small, ridiculously small. William decided to run. Not a marathon, not even a 5 kilometers, just running. First goal, run 400 meters every day for 30 days. Not even a kilometer, just 400 meters. A lap around the block. People thought it was pathetic. 400 meters? My grandmother does more than that. Perfect. The more ridiculous, the better, because ridiculous is easy, and easy is what he managed to maintain at that moment. It might seem ridiculous for someone to start so small or so slowly, but one will always be greater than 0. It's better to start by running 400 meters a day than never to start at all. First day of running, William put on his shoes. His body felt heavy. His lungs were weak. He went out into the street at 6:30 in the morning. He ran 400 meters. He almost died. He returned home breathless. But I had done it. Second day, his body ached. His legs complained. His mind was saying, "Yesterday you already proved you can do it. Today you can rest," Gaman went in. Discomfort isn't an emergency. He tied his shoes. He ran the 400 meters. Third day, raining. Here was the real test. Rain had always been his favorite excuse for doing nothing. William looked out the window. Warm body inside the house, cold street outside. And then he remembered something he had read about Zen monks. They meditate in the rain, in the cold, or in the heat, because the practice doesn't negotiate with the weather. William put on a coat. He ran in the rain, 400 meters, wet, cold, miserable. When he returned, he was certain he was becoming a different person. First week, 7 consecutive days, 2,800 meters in total. Nothing impressive, but William wasn't trying to impress anyone. Second week, 7 more days. The body was starting to adapt. Third week, for the first time, the 400 meters weren't torture. They were just normal. Fourth week completed. 30 consecutive days of 400 meters. William hadn't lost significant weight. He wasn't in shape, but he had kept a training commitment for an entire month. In the second month, he increased it to 800 meters, still small, but double what he started with, and his body held up because it had had time to adapt. In the third month, 1,200 meters. In the fourth month, 2 kilometers. In the sixth month, 5 kilometers. People started asking, "When are you going to run a marathon?" William replied, "Maybe never. I'm not running for a marathon. I'm running because that's what I do now." A sports. Science researcher discovered the biggest predictor of long-term athletic success isn't initial intensity. It's frequency in the first 90 days. People who train lightly but train every day are 600% more likely to still be training a year later than people who start heavy. This proves that the secret is not to start like an athlete, but to start by respecting your own limits. 9 months after starting, William was running 10 kilometers 3 times a week. The business was doing well. He had moved out of his miserable apartment and rented a decent place. But most importantly, he had become a different person. The business grew because he sent emails every day. The race improved because he ran every day. Life changed because he didn't create gaps. Chapter 3. The Greatest Obstacle. In the 10th month, William received an offer to work on a large project. Good pay. But it required a 3-week trip to another state. No gym, no routine, no structure. Here was the ultimate test. Everything he had built depended on a controlled environment. His apartment, his street, his routine. And now he was going to be ripped away from all of that. The older William would have refused the project for fear of breaking the sequence. Or he would have accepted and used the trip as an excuse to stop everything. The new William did things differently. He accepted the project and adapted the system. He wouldn't be able to run on his street. Okay, the hotel had a treadmill. He wouldn't be able to wake up at his normal time, okay? He'd wake up an hour earlier. He wouldn't have his laptop on the coffee table. Okay, he'd work in his hotel room before anything else. William realized something fundamental. Shitsuke isn't about having the perfect environment. It's about adapting the system to any environment. The week of travel was chaotic. Everything was different. Everything was more difficult. But he didn't stop. He ran on the hotel treadmill every day. He worked on emails every day. He kept the systems running even without the perfect infrastructure. The second week began to flow. By the third week, he realized he no longer needed the perfect environment. The system had been internalized. It was within him, not around him. When he returned home, William was no longer dependent on external triggers. He could do things anywhere, in any situation, because he had built discipline within himself. And that's when he truly understood the difference between Shitsuke and Gaman. Shitsuke builds the external system that facilitates behavior. But Gaman builds the internal system that continues to function when everything else falls apart. You start with Shitsuke. You create the triggers. You design the environment. You automate. But while you do all that, Gaman is being forged in the background. Every day you don't want to do it, but do it anyway. Every morning your body resists, but you keep going. All of this builds something that no external system can build on its own. A year after starting, William was earning more in 1 month than he used to earn in 6 months of his job. He had 10 regular clients. He had run 800 kilometers that year. He had maintained both systems without breaking down for 365 days. He had also developed a confidence that had nothing to do with arrogance. It was based on evidence. Evidence that he did what he said he would do. When he promised something to a client, he delivered. When he scheduled a workout, he worked out. When he said he was going to do something, he did it. That confidence changed everything. People started seeking him out because he was trustworthy. And trustworthiness in a world of inconsistent people is worth its weight in gold. William started receiving bigger offers, better projects, bigger clients, because reputation spreads. A behavioral psychologist who has studied decision-making for 20 years explains, every decision you make consumes glucose from the brain. Highly productive people automate small decisions to preserve mental energy for important ones. Discipline isn't about strength. It's about eliminating unnecessary decisions. Chapter 4. The True Transformation. 18 months after starting, William was in a situation he never imagined. A stable business, a healthy body, a clear mind. But most importantly, he had become someone who doesn't break. People asked him his secret. He would say something simple. I started so small that it was impossible to fail, and I never stopped. 5 emails a day turned into a business. 400 meters a day turned into 10 kilometers. Because he understood something that most people never understand. Greatness doesn't come from grand actions. It comes from tiny actions repeated until you can't stop anymore. William didn't become a billionaire. He didn't run ultramarathons. He didn't become a celebrity. But he built something far more valuable. He built a life where he controls his own destiny. where he doesn't depend on a boss, where he's not a prisoner of his own inconsistency. William also began to attract different people who were also on the same path, who understood that real growth doesn't come from bursts of motivation. It comes from irritating consistency. He met other entrepreneurs who woke up early, other runners who trained in any weather, people operating at the same level. And he realized that when you change, you automatically change your social circle. People who want quick and easy results stay away. People who understand the process come closer. William wasn't alone. He became selective, and that selectivity created an environment that fostered growth instead of draining it. 2 years after it started, he was at a party when he ran into his ex-girlfriend. She looked at him and said, "You've changed completely. You don't even seem like the same person." And she was right. He wasn't the William who gave up on everything, who couldn't stand discomfort, who broke every promise. That person no longer existed, and the reason was simple. He didn't keep everything. He kept 2 things: emails and running, and those 2 things taught him how to keep anything. Chapter 5: The Complete Philosophy. So here's what William learned about building unbreakable discipline. First, start so small that you feel ashamed. If the goal doesn't seem ridiculously easy, it's still too big. William started with 5 emails a day and a 400-meter run, because he understood that was what was sustainable for him at that moment. Most people start big and crash fast. They have 3 days of glory and then months of shame. William had months of invisible progress and then years of compound results. Second, consistency beats intensity every day of the week. It's better to do a little every day than a lot one day and nothing the rest of the week. William never had the perfect workout. He had 800 imperfect workouts, and those 800 workouts built something that no perfect workout can build on its own. Third, use Shitsuke to remove friction. Design your environment to make the right behavior automatic. Leave your laptop open in the contacts folder. Leave your sneakers next to your bed. Eliminate decisions, because every decision consumes energy that should be used for execution. Fourth, when the system fails, Gaman takes over. There will be days you don't want to. There will be days that hurt. There will be days that seem impossible. On those days, you don't trust the system. You trust what has been built within you. Gaman isn't about ignoring the body. It's about distinguishing between I don't want to and I can't. Not wanting to isn't a sufficient reason to stop. Not being able to is a reason to adapt. Did William run while sick? Yes, but he walked instead of running. He kept the flame alive. Did he work exhausted? Yes, but he sent 3 emails instead of 5. He didn't give up. Fifth, obstacles are not exceptions. They are the rule. You will have clients who cancel. You will have chaotic weeks. You will catch the flu. You will travel. You will have crises. All of this is normal. Consistency is not about continuing when everything is perfect. It's about continuing, especially when everything is broken. William didn't have a perfect year. He had a year of constant problems solved with constant action. The difference between him and everyone else wasn't the absence of problems. It was his consistent presence despite the problems. Sixth, transformation is not linear. You don't see progress on day 1, 5/20. It seems like nothing is happening. But something is happening invisibly. You are building the foundation. William sent emails for 3 weeks without a response. It seemed pointless. But I was building the habit of doing that. And when the first response finally arrived, he already had the structure to capitalize on it. He ran 400 meters for a month. He didn't lose weight. He didn't get in shape. But he built the system that eventually led him to 10 kilometers. The magic isn't in the first few days. It's in days 100, 200, 300. When behavior becomes identity, once the habit is established, you scale. The difference is that you scale based on most people try to build a skyscraper without a foundation. William built the foundation for months before adding floors. And when he did add them, the structure held because the base was solid. Eighth, never create gaps. A one-day gap seems harmless, but gaps are portals. They are holes where your old self crawls back in. William had bad days, sick days, impossible days, but he never had a 0 day. Even if I did 10% of my normal work, I would keep the flame burning, because he understood that momentum is everything. Stopping completely requires enormous energy to start again. Doing little and continuing requires minimal energy to scale up. Ninth, the beginning is always awful, always. There's no such thing as a comfortable beginning in anything worthwhile. First emails rejected, first races torture, first months invisible. But that's no sign you should stop. It's a sign you're on the right track. If it were easy, everyone would do it. The fact that it's difficult is precisely what makes it valuable. 10th and most important, you are not building habits. You are building a new identity. William didn't want to be someone who sends emails. He wanted to be an entrepreneur. He didn't want to be someone who runs. He wanted to be an athlete. And you don't become those things by deciding to be them. You become those things by acting like those people act repeatedly until the action becomes you. Each email was a vote for the entrepreneurial identity. Each race was a vote for the athlete identity. After hundreds of votes, the election was decided. He was no longer someone trying to be an entrepreneur. He was an entrepreneur trying to grow. This change in identity is permanent in a way that motivation never is. Motivation comes and goes. Identity remains. And when you operate from identity, you no longer need to convince yourself to do things. You simply do them because that's who you are. When behaviors are consistently repeated for approximately 18 months, they begin to integrate into the individual's sense of self. At that point, not performing the behavior creates cognitive dissonance. The person literally feels like they are betraying themselves. 3 years after starting, William was running a business that was making 6 figures a year. You had a small team. You had run 2 half marathons, simply because continuing to run eventually got you there. But most importantly, he had become someone people turned to when they needed someone reliable. When someone needed a job done, they thought of William. Because William delivered, that reputation opened doors that no amount of talent could. He wasn't the most creative. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the brightest, but he was the one who finished. And in a world full of people who start and don't finish, the one who finishes wins. William looked back and barely recognized who he was 3 years ago. That broke guy sitting on the floor of his miserable apartment with $847 in his account. This person had been dying little by little, with each email sent when they didn't want to, with each race completed when their body screamed to stop. Each small victory over themselves was a microscopic funeral for their old self. Chapter 6. The Legacy. The most beautiful part of William's story isn't the success itself. It's what he did with the success. He began mentoring young people in the community. Boys aged 18, 19 without direction, without discipline, without hope, exactly where he was, and he didn't fill them with motivation. He didn't give inspiring speeches. He gave them a challenge. Choose one thing, the smallest thing possible, and do it every day for 90 days. Then tell me what happened. Most didn't finish the 90 days, but those who did changed completely. Because they discovered the same truth William discovered. You are not who you say you are. You are what you repeatedly do. A boy decided to do 10 push-ups every day. It seemed ridiculous. But within 6 months, he was training seriously. Within a year, he had joined the army. 10 push-ups a day didn't significantly change his body, but they changed who he was. Another chose to read 5 pages every day. A year later, I had read 12 books. I had never finished a book in my life. 5 pages seemed pointless, but they were the bridge between who he was and who he could be. William realized something profound while mentoring these boys. The system wasn't about productivity. It was about dignity. When you're someone who breaks every promise to yourself, you lose self-respect. You start to see yourself as weak, untrustworthy, even to yourself. But when you become someone who does what you say you're going to do, even in the smallest things, you rebuild that dignity. You look in the mirror and see someone trustworthy, and that changes how you move through the world. William saw boys who came in with their heads down, ashamed, defeated, and they left months later with their shoulders slumped. Not because they had achieved great things, but because they had proven to themselves that they were capable of keeping a promise, and that proof, that deep knowledge that you are trustworthy, is worth more than any external achievement. William's story isn't about business success. It's not about racing. It's about something deeper. It's about a man who was at rock bottom. No money, no direction, no discipline. Nothing but $847 and a genuine desperation to change. And this man discovered a system that transforms chronic inconsistency into unbreakable constancy. Shitsuke and Gaman, not as abstract concepts, but as practical tools applied every single day, Shitsuke taught him to create systems so simple that it was impossible to fail. Gaman taught him to persevere when the system wasn't enough. The combination created something that no motivation can create: permanence. William didn't become perfect. He had bad days. He had flaws. He had moments of weakness. But he never had gaps. And in the absence of gaps, in the presence of irritating constancy, his life changed completely. What you need to understand is that this isn't an exception. It's a pattern. The system works for anyone willing to start so small it seems ridiculous and continue so consistently it seems obsessive. You don't need to be special. You need to be consistent. You don't need to start big. You need to start small. You don't need to be perfect. You need to never reset. The question isn't whether you have enough talent. It's whether you have enough consistency. And consistency isn't something you have. It's something you build. One drop at a time, one day at a time, brick by brick. Consistency isn't the fastest way. It's the only way that truly works. If you've watched this far, thank you for your attention. You're not like most people. Most give up halfway through. You made it to the end. That already says something about you. Be present, walk with honor, follow the path. Until the next video.